Definitely did not find this video edited, ready to be uploaded, time-stamped a couple of months ago. I'm sorry. Good evening. Fun fact, evening here in England. So today I wanted to talk about public speaking, which I know a lot of people really struggle with regardless of whether you have anxiety or not. So it is kind of an important thing to talk about. But Kat, you make YouTube videos and that means putting videos of yourself talking on the internet, and you want to go do an English and drama degree. How are you nervous about public speaking? Because acting, I'm not myself, and currently for this video I'm sat alone in my sister's room where no one can hear me talking to a camera. So now, my public speaking problems started when I first realised I couldn't actually read out loud properly. Like, I would skip lines, I would skip words, I would start reading one line and then drop down to the next line, and everything would just go wrong. And because I was aware of the fact that I was going wrong, my temperature would rise, I'd feel my palms start to shake, and I ended up having to get one of my friends to hold a pen and cite where I was on the lines because I just couldn't do it. But then, bit of a strange thing, I went and got my eyes tested, and it turns out I had convergence problems, which is why I couldn't read out loud properly, because my eyes didn't line up properly, so I would get my positioning wrong. So with the help of these, I'm getting better at it, and it's something I've been pushing myself to get better at because my philosophy teacher is constantly making me read out loud, so thanks for that. Now moving on to public speaking, which is an even bigger form of reading out loud. So that really worried me. Even without flashcards in front of me, I would mess up my words, I'd get my sentences in the wrong order, I'd go off on a huge tangent, and I'd just miss the point I was talking about, and everyone would be like, why have they got this girl to speak to us about this very important thing? Like, why my child should go to this sixth form. So, sixth form open evening, I was in the hall and I was talking to an audience of about 250 people the first time I did it, which then dropped down to slightly smaller 80, but no less nerve-wracking the second time than it was the first. So, you know, my palms were sweating, my temperature was going through the roof, I couldn't stop shaking, and I felt like I was going to throw up everywhere. And when it came to the end of my first little talk, I actually had to leave the hall and run to the toilets because I really thought I was going to throw up, and one of the teachers had to come and get me and make sure I was okay before I had to go back in and talk again. And I went down to the drama booth, which is where I was meant to be that evening, because I was roped into doing this talk at the very last minute because I was actually in the promotional video that had been shot, and I told my drama teacher about my experience and how I was still shaky and I still wasn't over it and I still hadn't calmed down properly. And she told me, as it turns out, the people who struggle with public speaking tend to adapt to acting better because they know that they do not have to be themselves when they are performing to a large audience. Now, the thing is, my drama teacher actually knew at the time that I was really struggling with panic attacks, and she knew that I was struggling with having to go and talk to this huge audience, but she did try and get me out of it, and there was no way I could get out of it, so I did just have to go and do it. And because I told her that I still wasn't feeling myself, I hadn't come back from that place of panic and anxiety to the point where I felt like I couldn't function again properly, the amazing, wonderful drama teacher that I have sent me home. She just took one look at me after I finished explaining to her how I felt and what had happened, and said, look, you can't do this if you're still feeling that way, so don't worry about having to sell the subject to anyone, just go home and rest and look after yourself. And even if you don't tell anyone that you struggle with public speaking or that you're dealing with anxiety or panic attacks or anxiety attacks for that matter, I think you should still look after yourself after you've had something like that, because they're horrible. They do not take a short amount of time to recover from. You take ages. It's at the longest it took me quite a few hours to start feeling myself again, stop feeling so shaken and panicky. And you should look after yourself after your body has shaken you like that, because the first time you have a panic attack, a lot of people think they're dying because they don't know what's happening to them. So when your body goes through something like that, where you get scared and feel like you're dying or like your chest is going to explode because you can't breathe properly, you need to take the time to look after yourself. And I think a lot of people ignore the fact that although it is a it is up here, it originates up here, the rest of you needs to recover as well. And then I got involved with the school Shakespeare Festival later on in the year. My school did Hamlet and I played Laertes, which was a lot of fun. But we were performing to an audience of about 250 people again, and my parents were sat right in the front row. And the truth is, it didn't bother me at all, because I was not me. I was being Laertes. That's very important when you are being someone else, because you know it's not you who is being judged, it's the character who's being judged. By becoming a different person, you can kind of put your anxieties and your worries to one side and just put them in a little box and forget about them and completely become this character. And that's not to say I wasn't nervous, because I had a panic attack before I went out, to the point where, you know, I thought I was going to faint, I was dizzy, my hearing went all muffled, and the moment I stepped out on stage, I was fine, because I was a completely different person. Oh, hiccups.